And we're here because this Head Start program represents the heart of what this conversation is really about. That's supporting families with young children who are working hard to build stability and opportunity for their families. Rising energy costs don't just affect utility bills. They affect a family's ability to provide a safe and warm home and to invest in their children's future. I also want to extend thanks to our co-hosts, the Community Action Partnership of Hennepin County. You guys want to just give just a light wave. And for partnering with us today to plan today's event and for the really critical work that they do to support households facing energy and financial challenges every day. So finally, I want to thank the members of the media who are joining us in person and online to help us share this important conversation with Minnesotans across the state, and also our state legislators who are here. Thank you for being here. We've been hearing from Minnesotans about what we are calling a two-way squeeze on family budgets. So that's rising costs on one side and incomes that aren't keeping pace. Minnesota families are working hard to balance rising costs from housing and healthcare to groceries and transportation. When energy prices become more unpredictable and more expensive, the strain is often felt immediately. So today's conversation is about unpacking how the recent federal energy policy decisions and whether they involve new tariffs, changes to incentive structures, or shifts in a long-term national strategy translate into real-world household budgets here at home. I'm joined by a group of leaders who see the impact of energy costs from multiple angles: policy, consumer advocacy, community support, and lived experience. So please welcome our participants. We have State Senator Nick Frentz, who's the chair of the Senate Energy Committee. We have Assistant Commissioner Alyssa Polish. She is the Assistant Commissioner at Minnesota Department of Commerce and our Division of Energy Resources. Tammy Alto is the Director of the Energy Assistance Programs, the Community Action Partnership of Hennepin County. And Annie Levinson-Falk is the Executive Director of the Citizens Utility Board. We may be joined by a community member later, Trey Douglas. If he joins, then we'll be sure to introduce him. So thank you all for being here. We have about 30 minutes for roundtable questions and then 15 minutes for kind of open dialogue afterwards. So I have some directed questions and then we can see where this takes us. So to start us off, and we really want this to be a real conversation, so feel free to jump in and if you have something to add, that's totally fine. We want everyone's voices to be heard. So to start us off, Assistant Commissioner Polish, can you please help us understand how recent federal policy changes and other factors are influencing energy prices right here in Minnesota and the impact they'll have both in the short term and in the long term?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we've been talking the most about is the impact of H.R. 1, also known as the One Big Beautiful Bill. It would be hard for me to describe it as beautiful based on just the energy price impacts alone. So one of the things that the bill does is it repeals the solar and wind tax credits. So if you don't have a project that starts by this coming July, or if it's not completed by the end of 2027, it's going to cost 30% more. And in some ways it's like, okay, so why would that matter? Well, it matters because we are working hard to build out our generation, our electric fleet of generation right now to meet growing demands in the electric sector. Solar and wind are the things that we can build. And so having the tax credits go away simply means that that's going to get more expensive. In some analyses that we've done internally, just looking at the plans from our state's 3 largest investor-owned utilities, so Xcel Energy, Otter Tail Power, and Minnesota Power, they had planned investments starting for 2028 through 2032, and it will cost the state ratepayers $7 billion with a B dollars more for those investments because they won't be able to access the federal tax credits. That's huge. There are independent analyses that are looking at electric bill increases for households of 10% by 2029, going up to 25 to even 40% by 2035. I mean, these are real and tangible impacts. And the bill also, at the exact same moment, sunset the EV tax credits, those are already gone, sunset household electricity and home improvement tax credits, slated to end at the end of this year, sunset solar incentives for folks that were trying to figure out a way to avoid some of those price increases. Those are also sunsetting at the end of the year. And that's just on the tax side. So tariffs, as Commissioner mentioned, are driving all kinds of prices up, and as we make investments in the system, all of those things are going to be more expensive. There are also all kinds of other federal policies. So in the spring, the administration ordered a coal plant in Michigan that was slated to close. Their utility regulator had looked at the cost of operating the system, looked at the generation needs, and said, this one needs to close. The administration required it to stay open, and since May, that has already cost ratepayers $80 million. And you might think, oh, it's in Michigan. But they want to extend the sharing of the load for that cost increase across Midwest customers. So it could impact us too. Last week, about 10 days ago, the Energy Information Administration released their natural gas energy outlook and forecast for the short term. It's predicting a 16% natural gas rate increase next year. And that's because of increased liquid natural gas exports, another federal policy decision. And then we have all sorts of folks in our communities who have been impacted by grants that have been terminated or attempted terminations, all of which have the potential to increase the cost that Minnesotans have to pay. And I am sorry for always being a downer every time I join any one of these panels, but all of this is this really tangible impact. Like, it seems big and out here, but it matters to an individual. Your rate's going up 10% is 10% more. It's just 10% more. 16% more for your natural gas in a cold winter is gonna matter to people's pocketbooks, and it matters to all of the things that they have to spend money on.
Thank you, Assistant Commissioner Polish. Would anyone else like to add any thoughts about the short and long-term impacts before I direct a question to Senator Fentz?
Sounds like I'm up either way.
All right,
You go ahead, Grace.
You, Alyssa did a great job, or Assistant Commissioner Polish did a great job of outlining some of the changes. I'm wondering if you can talk about how federal energy changes, like incentives or clean grid, for the clean grid or grid modernization, how are they playing out in rural communities? Are there unique challenges or opportunities in greater Minnesota? And think about that especially as it applies to affordability and kind of access to those projects.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good seeing you. Thanks, everybody. My name is Nick Frentz. I live in North Mankato. It's my honor to chair the Energy, Utilities, Environment, Climate Committee in the Senate, where affordability is already a focus. And to the Assistant Commissioner's point, voters delivered a message they thought it was pretty important a couple weeks ago. So as we talk to Minnesotans in rural communities, we were already hearing about affordability, and into the discussion now comes energy. So let's imagine it this way. Your family needs to buy groceries every week, and we somehow magically knew your family's going to have to buy about twice as many bags of groceries in about 10 or 15 years. Our energy demand's going to double about that ratio. But then we said the federal government's going to change the price of groceries from its normal modest increase to a ramping up. And I must say, as I saw this, Assistant Commissioner,
right?
You might be nicer than me. I'm not sure these numbers are actually accurate. Families are going to be hit in the pocketbook, and if there's one lesson Minnesotans have been sending to the elected officials, it's that we have roof overhead, food on table, clothes on back issues. And so this is a serious matter, and as these changes start to impact people's monthly energy bills, you're going to see it. You did a great job, Assistant Commissioner. I had thought about sharing a few things. So let me try this example. Some of you may have seen the cancellation by the federal government of the $455 million transmission project. This is just a grant that the people that run our transmission of electricity had already received. We were already told you will get this. We're still going to build it, but now you're going to pay for it. So those rural constituencies who are asking, hey, what about pocketbook issues, Nick? I'm saying, well, here's some news for you. You're going to absorb $500 million just on this one change. And for clarity, this is part of what the Assistant Commissioner is talking about with the $7 billion. I want to add this, and I didn't come here to be partisan, but I'm a Minnesotan. The cancellations of those projects seem to only occur in states that had chosen a certain political party to govern them. And there are virtually identical projects around the country that were not canceled. And so I'm here to work with all of you to try to find solutions and have the state of Minnesota. But I don't think it's our job to be quiet about some of this unfairness. And Minnesotans, being a part of the MISO grid, are seeing example after example after example of that. I could go on, Commissioner, but I think the basic message here is The federal government just told you that your energy bills are going up a lot faster than you would like. And I want to pose this question for Minnesotans. For what? So we could give a tax cut of over $1 trillion to some of the wealthiest people, literally to billionaires, and we have a president that's a billionaire? Are you sure that that's the direction our country needs to go when the message from the voters is affordability is our top issue? So I can assure you that there's some bipartisan work in the Senate Energy Committee on affordability. It's always been a focus of ours that people want clean, reliable, and affordable energy, and looking forward to the rest of the discussion. Hello, Senator Scott Dibble.
Hello, how are you? Sorry. Do you want me to or?
No, you stay right where you are.
Thank you, Senator Friends. I'll turn it now to Tammy, and we've been joined by Senator Dibble, so thank you. I'll turn it now to Tammy. You work directly with households. We've heard a lot about the big picture, but you're working with households who are applying for energy assistance. What kind of trade-offs do you think families will need to make when energy bills spike, and what do you see in your daily work?
That's a very good question. It is something that I see on a daily basis, and I've seen for 18 years working in energy assistance. As the price increases, which always seems to happen, just as one rate increase gets approved, they are already working on another rate increase. In our households that we work with, which are low-income households, here, specifically that I work with is the ones in Hennepin County. They're already stretched with everything that you can think of. And the Energy Assistance Program is a safety net. It's part of the safety net system. It's just one panel. But we have households that utilize our program every year. They rely on it to be able to help supplement the costs so that they don't have to worry about the increasing costs in their bill. They still have to pay a portion of it, but they can take those extra dollars and buy diapers, or they can buy food, or they can pay a medical bill that inadvertently happened, or a vehicle repair so that they could get to work, or just even fill the gas tank so that they could get to work. That safety net is so important, and it's not just LIHEAP, it's CSBG funds as well that are a part of that, and community actions help that safety net expand, and each community action is unique, and so our needs in Hennepin County might be completely different than those needs in greater Minnesota, or even down the street at Scott Carver and Dakota. And so what's great about these funds is that you can utilize them. And so our households are able to leverage the funds that they're getting in all these different programs, because that is their safety net. And as the costs increase over here, then they don't have as much money. And if programs get cut, they don't have as much money. And so we're thankful that the continuing resolution passed. We're thankful of anybody on each side, congressionally, federally, state-wise, that they work to get the government reworking and back up and running, because we've heard we're getting our funds, and our funds are supposed to be right now, fingers crossed, coming by the end of November. If that happens, that's going to be a real gift to these households, because the costs continue to go up. And then maybe now they don't have to worry about that energy bill, and they can take those dollars and put them towards food, childcare, medical expenses, etc.
Thank you. I really appreciate the we're talking about energy prices today, but they go into a whole picture of a person's budget, and it's one part of a human and the way that they're getting through their day. So really appreciate that perspective. Annie, I'm wondering if I can change it to you. So COB has raised concerns that HR 1 could increase energy costs for Minnesota households and slow the pace of clean energy development. From your perspective, what should consumers and policymakers be watching most closely in the months ahead, and how can we ensure that affordability and long-term energy planning stay aligned, even if there are shifts in the federal incentives?
Yeah, thank you. I don't think I can add anything to what Assistant Commissioner Polish said about the impacts of HR1. I think you said it, and unfortunately, that's the situation that we're dealing with now in Minnesota. And so we're looking at the state level and what can we do within this situation, which is not ideal, that we're now dealing with. The short term, I think, is going to be super important. People have to be able to afford their heat. They have to be able to afford their power. And we're seeing some real red flags in Minnesota, just like a lot of other states around the country. So folks have talked about energy assistance. That's a critical program. We're really happy that it's funded, and hopefully the funding will be making its way to qualified families shortly here. But it's not sufficient, and it never has been, and the budgets have been going down at the same time as energy costs have been going up. So basically more assistance is needed. There are utility programs that people can qualify for. They can help with that. So if you are a qualified low-income family, in many cases you can have your bills capped at a % of income, and you work with your utility to do that. Those are great, and those programs need to be supported and expanded here in Minnesota, and a lot of utilities are interested in doing that. There's great efficiency and weatherization opportunities. Unfortunately, those are now more expensive because we don't have the tax credits, or as of the end of the year, those will be gone. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to be cost effective. So for folks that, if you have to do an improvement, or you're able to afford a little bit more upfront, there can be real savings, and there's help for that as well through state or utility programs. And then, where it gets a little more difficult is looking at the regulatory level. So utilities, when they want to increase costs, they have to come in for approval from the State Public Utilities Commission. And that's a really complicated and long process, but it's really important just to make sure that all of those costs, anytime they're raising rates, that those are necessary and justified by facts on the record. And so our organization, I know the Department of Commerce is very deeply involved with that, and many others, to be scrutinizing those costs and making sure that any rates that go on to household bills are going to be justified. At the same time, I think we need to be, even though there is a short-term problem and that's got our attention right now, we need to not lose track of the longer-term stuff. And I think actually Minnesota has a real advantage here over a lot of other states where we have long-term planning processes set up. Mm-hmm. They can be, again, like complicated and wonky and regulatorily bureaucratic, but there are really good processes where in the energy systems, how are we going to be meeting our needs for power in 15 years? And are we planning for that in a way that those costs are going to be reasonable and spaced out, and we're meeting our clean energy goals? So we're doing that on the electric side, have been for a long time. We're approaching that on natural gas now, which is going to be really good. So I think from the process standpoint, we have the elements, but there's just a lot of work to do. So really looking forward, we're working at the Public Utilities Commission on that, looking forward to working with Senator Frentz and others at the legislature to see what can be done this year to help relieve some of these affordability challenges.
Great, thanks, Annie. I'll have one question for anyone on the panel, and if there are a few different parts of it, so you can take the part that you like best, and so you can go for that. So as we're looking in the future, where do you see the greatest opportunities for innovation, or for state-level collaboration, or even community-led efforts that can help support affordability and stability for Minnesota households amid shifting federal policy priorities? You guys don't be shy, just jump in. Senator Frentz, you look like you're...
Well, first of all, I just want to recognize our colleague, Senator Scott Dibble, who's a leader on LIHEAP. I mean that as a compliment. Yes. And Senator Mann, who's already here, and we said hello. So thanks. Everybody's busy. I appreciate you guys coming. There's a lot of opportunity. Minnesota's been a leader, to Annie's point. We've done a lot of great stuff. We got some good processes, but here are some examples. Battery storage. We've got some technological innovation going on with Form battery. We've got some things that look very promising. And for our intermittent resources, wind and solar primarily, if we can store them for 100 hours, it's revolutionary. It'll take an energy source which we can't count on every day. Sun's not always shining, wind's not always blowing, and allow us to save it. And I wanted to throw this in earlier. The irony for Minnesotans in their pocketbooks of the federal government's approach here with this bill undercutting wind and solar subsidies is just staggering when you place it against the fact that we're now seeing wind and solar be the cheapest. We are watching unsubsidized wind, arguably at the Public Utilities Commission, be the lowest cost energy. So here comes our federal government with many of your Minnesota tax dollars shifting them around to undercut the two cheapest energy forms. So at the state level, I think we want to bring that voice into our advocacy, into our committees, and into our communities. And I guess I would say, I think you're gonna have some help once these electric and energy bills start showing up on people's doorsteps, and they start saying, what the heck happened here? And we start saying, well, you may be paying for a coal plant in Michigan, and they're gonna say, why? We're gonna say, there is no good reason. They were already out of that coal plant because of cost only, even if you don't care about climate change. And I'll just get off my soapbox after one last shot, Commissioner. This is not the panel necessarily, but climate change is costing us money and lives. Whether you cheer for a certain energy technology or not, we're watching
Right.
$52 billion storms in this country, and the entire planet is suffering. The people of Jamaica just made a huge point at the COP30 festival. I call it a festival because their island was devastated by one storm. Who do you think's paying for all that? The rest of the planet. And we are not taking enough steps as a country. And the irony there is we're the ones who put the most carbon emissions into the atmosphere over the last 150 years. So there's a lot we can do, Grace. I'm looking forward to it. Not that I've thought about it much.
All right, Annie, go ahead.
Well, first, just to ditto everything that Senator Frantz just said. Maybe I'll just talk a little bit at the individual level. There's almost always things that an individual family can do, whether you rent or own your home, that can reduce your energy costs, short-term and long-term. There's usually efficiency opportunities, there's usually conservation, there's the low-hanging fruit, and then there's like the home improvements. But one that I think is really promising, and is particularly for rural Minnesota, is looking at heat pumps. The heat pump technology has gotten to the place where it's just cost effective. I live in a rural area, I have propane heat, and I have a cold climate heat pump just because it makes my heating bills a lot less expensive and a lot more predictable. I think it's a real opportunity, certainly in areas that are served by propane or delivered fuels, but even if you have a natural gas, a lot of the times it's cost effective. So we're excited about that. I think there's real promise there.
I want to just say that, building on what you've both mentioned already, I think hard times also create an opportunity for people to think creatively. At some point, people realize we cannot keep doing it like this, and we don't have enough resources to meet all of those needs right now. What are some other things that we can try? And I think we're starting to hear ideas of people saying, well, what if we were being more strategic and invested in heat pumps for all delivered fuel households or something like that? I'm not saying that we have all the resources for that, but even having people put out ideas allows new things to bubble up and new ideas to really start percolating, where people can work through, what would this actually look like? What would it actually mean? And I think people have a very tangible sense of what affordability needs to mean for a person to be able to get by week to week, month to month. And I think it's generating new ideas in terms of things that we should be advocating for at the Public Utilities Commission, things that we should be advocating for at the legislature, but also in terms of how communities come together to actually support one another through this and make sure that they're there for each other navigating it.
And I would add, everything that everybody here has said, I wholeheartedly agree with. As a low-income household, it's going to be even more difficult to be able to afford a heat pump or, some different affordability options that they can have. We teach energy conservation to our households, and we've partnered in this last year with All Energy Solar and provided rooftop solar panels on energy assistant approved homes, which has just been fantastic. It's reducing their energy costs, their electricity costs by at least 50%. It's been crazy. In addition, this year we're partnering with US Solar, and we will be doing introducing the metro area to community solar gardens. And so again, trying to offset the different energy costs so that some of our lowest income households can take advantage of some of the benefits that are out there. And again, trying to make every dollar stretch.
Thank you all for your perspectives. Before we move to questions from any members of the press, I just want to give an opportunity for either Senator Mann or Senator Dibble to either say a few words or ask questions of the panel. Up to you.
continue to work on issues around access and resourcing the LIHEAP program and the conservation efficiency weatherization. And to the extent that we can, that's largely federally funded though. We're not gonna, I just don't want to make any false promises. We
Yeah.
can't
No.
backfill all of the withdrawals of federal commitments in this space, but we will do what we can. Really appreciated the conversation about looking to the long term, whether that's rooftop solar, heat pumps, or resource planning. That's going to be so important. My pet issue these days, and maybe I've talked to some of you about this, is where these decisions actually get made. Oftentimes, I'm thinking, for example, my next door neighbor just bought her place. I live in a townhome, share a common wall. She needed to change out her HVAC system, and she just kind of called the contractor up. Contractor brought in new heating, new air conditioning. She replaced her water heater. None of it with an eye towards conservation, efficiency, electrification. Heat pumps not even
On the radar.
So where, and now that's locked in, this new HVAC system for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
A lost opportunity. So really looking at those points of interface and decision making, I think is the magic. But a lot of this effort to change for the future at the individual household decision making.
Could I add to that for just a second? So many folks have heard about the home energy rebates that were authorized back in 2023. And we've been working really hard to try to get that launched. We've now been waiting from the Department of Energy for approval for months. But one of the things that's been important, I think, about having that framework is it talks specifically about market transformation, which seems like a wonky term, but what it means is making sure people know that this is an option, making sure contractors know how to do the installation, and that they feel comfortable selling it, right? I mean, that's part of it, is because it is one of those household decisions. You're gonna call, hopefully you're gonna get multiple bids, but it's hard to even analyze those bids if you don't know, oh, well, actually the thing I want is this other thing, because you're gonna take what a contractor offers you. They're professionals in that space, and so we need to make sure that we're focusing on all of those efforts, the workforce development, the training programs to get new folks into those fields, but also training up the contractors who are already in that space to make sure that they know and have access to both the training and on the technology, but the incentives that are available so that they can know, hey, a utility has a rebate for that. It could help bring the cost down and make it more accessible.
Thanks, Assistant Commercial Polish. I'll say we got our heater replaced recently, and the first conversation was, you don't want a heat pump. And we were like, actually, we do, for all the reasons that Annie laid out. It's much more comfortable in addition to it saving energy.
Yeah.
All right, Senator Mann, anything that you'd like to add?
Well, I would just thank you for your expertise and for being here. I think that your open comments, Commissioner, you need to have in the handout. Because, we've been really focusing on these big pieces of HR 1, healthcare, housing, education, and I don't think people know just how impactful this piece is going to be, and how hurtful this piece is going to be. A lot of the work that I do is to keep people out of the ER.
Yeah.
How do we keep people healthy enough not to come to the ER? And because of the energy piece in this bill,
Yeah.
people are going to end up in the
They
ER.
are.
So I think we need to really focus on getting that information out because this piece is just as important as the rest of that part of the bill.
Thank you. Senator Frantz.
Senator Mann, just wanted to add to the conversation that, the Senate has a select committee on the impacts of the bill overall, and the energy portion will be next week. So looking forward to bringing a little bit of attention to it that way. Thank you for flagging that.
And I think Senator Mann has a point that is kind of emphasized through here is that energy prices are one piece of a large bill, but they're also one piece of a person's budget or a family's budget, and it gets into a lot of other impacts. If you're cold, you're going to end up in the ER, right? You'll have all these impacts that are then borne by other parts of the system that can be really I'll turn now to see if there are any